The Seekers of Enlightenment. Thomas had always been a bit of a loner, introverted and introspective. He often found solace in the quiet corners of libraries and the dimly lit glow of his computer screen. But his life changed one gloomy afternoon when he stumbled upon a peculiar online community called the Seekers of Enlightenment. The group claimed to offer answers to life's most profound mysteries, promising to reveal hidden truths about the universe and humanity's place within it. Intrigued, Thomas clicked the invitation link and soon found himself amidst a virtual congregation of like-minded individuals. As he scrolled through their discussions and delved into the esoteric teachings they shared, Thomas became enamored by the group's members. They were erudite, articulate, and seemed to possess a wisdom that transcended ordinary knowledge. Their words resonated with him in a way he couldn't explain, and a sense of belonging washed over him. Over the next few weeks, Thomas participated actively in the group's discussions. He embraced their ideology, which revolved around seeking enlightenment and harnessing the hidden powers of the human mind. The more he engaged, the deeper he fell into their mysterious world. Eventually, he received a message from a member named Isabella, inviting him to a secret gathering of the Seekers. She described it as a life-changing experience that would solidify his commitment to the group. Thomas hesitated, but curiosity got the better of him, and he agreed to attend. The meeting took place in a remote cabin deep within the woods. As Thomas approached the location, he felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The forest seemed to come alive with whispers, as if the trees themselves were warning him. But he brushed off the unease, attributing it to nerves. Inside the cabin, the air was thick with incense, and soft candlelight cast flickering shadows on the walls. A circle of hooded figures awaited him in the center of the room. Isabella stood at the forefront, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that sent a shiver down Thomas's spine. "Welcome, Thomas," she greeted him, her voice a melodic whisper. "We are delighted you have chosen to join us in our quest for enlightenment." The ritual that followed was unlike anything Thomas had ever experienced. The group chanted incantations that resonated with an eerie power, and Thomas felt a strange energy coursing through his body. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the sensation, and for a fleeting moment, he believed he had found the answers he had been searching for. Days turned into weeks, and Thomas's involvement with the Seekers deepened. He distanced himself from friends and family, convinced that they could never understand the profound truths he had uncovered. He spent hours meditating and practicing esoteric rituals under Isabella's guidance. Each day he felt his mind expand, and he became increasingly absorbed in the cult's teachings. But as time passed, cracks began to appear in the facade of enlightenment. Thomas noticed that the group's methods grew more extreme. They urged him to cut ties with anyone outside the cult, claiming that outsiders were polluting his mind with impure thoughts. Isabella's once charming demeanor turned controlling and domineering. One evening, as he sat alone in his dimly lit room, Thomas received a message from an old friend, Daniel. It had been months since they had last spoken, and Daniel expressed concern for Thomas's well-being. He had heard rumors about the Seekers of Enlightenment and their sinister practices. Thomas's heart pounded as he read the message. Doubt gnawed at him, and he decided to confide in Daniel. They arranged to meet at a local cafe the next day. As he sat across from Daniel, Thomas hesitated before finally opening up about his involvement with the cult. He recounted his journey, from the initial fascination to the increasingly disturbing rituals and Isabella's controlling influence. Daniel listened attentively, his face a mix of worry and determination. "We need to get you out of there, Thomas," Daniel said firmly. "This group sounds dangerous, and I've heard stories about people disappearing after they get too deep into these things." Thomas nodded, realizing that his friend was right. He had become entangled in something far more sinister than he had ever imagined. With Daniel's help, Thomas began to distance himself from the Seekers of Enlightenment. He stopped attending their gatherings and deactivated his online presence within the group. Isabella's anger was palpable, and she made desperate attempts to lure him back, but Thomas was determined to break free. However, the cult's influence was not so easily shaken. As Thomas tried to rebuild his life, he began to experience strange occurrences. Whispers followed him wherever he went, unintelligible voices that seemed to emanate from the shadows. He would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced he had seen hooded figures lurking outside his window. Thomas's mental state deteriorated rapidly. He sought help from therapists and even considered medication, but the haunting whispers persisted. He became a recluse, barricading himself in his apartment, fearing the day he would be taken by the seekers of enlightenment. One evening, as he sat alone in his dimly lit room, the whispers grew louder, more menacing. He could hear Isabella's voice among them, promising enlightenment and threatening dire consequences if he did not return. Driven to the brink of madness, Thomas decided to confront the cult once and for all. With Daniel by his side, he returned to the remote cabin in the woods where it all began. The night was cold and foreboding, and the trees seemed to whisper their warnings once more. Inside the cabin, they found a scene of horror. The hooded figures, once serene and composed, now writhed in agony, their bodies contorting unnaturally. Isabella stood at the center, her eyes devoid of humanity, as if possessed by a malevolent force. In a desperate attempt to break the curse that had ensnared him, Thomas confronted Isabella. He pleaded with her to release him from the darkness that had consumed him, but she only laughed, a haunting, hollow sound that sent shivers down his spine. As the confrontation escalated, the cabin itself seemed to come alive, the very walls pulsating with a sinister energy. The cult members' screams echoed through the woods as their bodies twisted and convulsed. In a final act of defiance, Isabella unleashed a surge of energy, a malevolent force that threatened to engulf them all. But Thomas, fueled by his determination to break free, reached deep within himself and found the strength to resist. With a powerful burst of willpower, he shattered the cult's hold over him, and the energy dissipated, leaving the cabin in ruins. The cult was no more, its members either dead or incapacitated, and Isabella was gone, her fate unknown. Thomas and Daniel emerged from the woods, forever scarred by their ordeal, but free from the clutches of the seekers of enlightenment. In the end, Thomas had learned a horrifying truth. The quest for enlightenment could sometimes lead to the darkest of depths, and the line between knowledge and madness was perilously thin. The whispers in the shadows would haunt him for the rest of his days, a chilling reminder of the danger that lurked beneath the surface of seemingly innocent pursuits. Curse of Blackwood. The wind howled through the desolate town of Blackwood, a place shrouded in a history of darkness and despair. The townsfolk spoke of the curse of Blackwood, an eerie tale that had plagued their nightmares for generations. But for Sarah, a curious journalist seeking a gripping story, it was an irresistible mystery. Sarah had heard whispers about a secretive cult that resided deep within the town's decaying woods. They were said to be the keepers of the curse, orchestrating malevolent rituals that had damned Blackwood for centuries. As she delved deeper into her research, her obsession with the cult grew. She knew she had to uncover their secrets, regardless of the consequences. One moonless night, under the cover of darkness, Sarah ventured into the woods. Armed with only a flashlight and her unyielding determination, she followed the faint, eerie sounds that led her deeper into the heart of the forest. The trees loomed overhead like ancient, twisted sentinels, and a dense fog enveloped her, making her heart race. Eventually, Sarah stumbled upon a clearing ahead in an eerie, pale light. In the center stood a circle of hooded figures. Chanting in a language she couldn't comprehend, the cultists' voices sent shivers down her spine, their words carrying an otherworldly power that seemed to seep into her very soul. Hidden behind a thicket, Sarah watched in terror as the cultists brought forth a young woman, bound and gagged. Her eyes widened with fear, pleading for mercy, but it was clear that none would be granted. The cultists raised their hands, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. A monstrous, grotesque creature emerged from the earth, its limbs contorted and its eyes devoid of emotion. The creature's skin was a sickly grey, its elongated limbs ending in gnarled claws. It snatched the helpless woman, and her muffled screams echoed through the woods. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she witnessed the horrifying ritual unfold before her eyes. Desperation gripped her, and she realized she had to escape before she too became a victim of the cult's sinister practices. With trembling hands, she inched backward, but a twig snapped loudly beneath her foot. The cultists' heads turned in unison, their eyes locking onto her hiding place. Panic consumed Sarah as she sprinted through the woods, their malevolent chants and unearthly cries echoing behind her. Branches scratched at her skin, and the woods seemed to shift and twist, leading her deeper into their treacherous depths. Hours later, Sarah stumbled out of the woods, her clothes torn and her body bruised. She had narrowly escaped the clutches of the cult, but the horrors she had witnessed haunted her every waking moment. She knew she had uncovered the dark secret of Blackwood, but the price of that knowledge was her sanity. The curse of Blackwood would forever remain, and Sarah was left with a chilling realization. Some secrets were meant to stay buried, and the darkness lurking in the hearts of men was a horror beyond imagination. Thanks for watching. To support us, please like and subscribe.